My name is Rotkang Hannah Kyunni. At the moment, I'm the program coordinator on the Prevent and Protect project. The project is being handled by NEEM Foundation, and it's meant to be an 18-month project. What we do is to strengthen institutions working on GBV, on their responses to GBV survivors. NEEM Foundation is actually derived from the NEEM tree. So it's just a name, it's not an acronym, the NEEM Foundation. And this organization was founded from insurgencies in northeastern Nigeria. So it actually started, it's actually an offshoot when most of the people interventions on the crisis in Maiduguri were dying down. The NEEM Foundation stood to bring in interventions against violence, extremisms, and other things like that. So that's where NEEM Foundation started from. Okay, it's actually Prevent and Protect. And on working on Prevent and Protect project, what we do basically is we work with institutions that are already working on GBV to strengthen their responses on GBV survivors. Now, these organizations that we work with, we work basically in Kano, we work with the CSOs, and the CSOs have a coalition. We call them CPAC. That's the Coalition for Policy Advocacy. We've worked a lot with them to see to how the responses to GBV are. And you know, when you get into the coalition, there are lots of organizations, government organizations that are a part of the coalition. We've worked a lot with them, and we've had meetings with them. And some of the activities we had are actually as a result of the meetings or our interactions with CPAC. And then we also work a lot with the Ministry of Women Affairs. You know, the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development here in Kano. We've had interventions with them. We've had meetings with them. And we've even had validation of GBV referral pathways with them, where we went ahead to have a workshop with them. And then we also work with the media. And we actually had a big media roundtable. We've had about 3 or 4 media roundtables where we come and we discuss the role of the media. And as an offshoot of this, we've even had free media coverages for some of our programs, thanks to people like your organization, Chagalinku TV, the radio stations, and also the print media. We've enjoyed a lot from the media. And the media too has also helped us a lot in sensitizing and also creating awareness amongst the populace in Kano on gender-based violence. So that is so much for that. But one of the biggest activities that we've had is the mental health training we had. We call it MHPSS, the Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Training, where we have trained a lot of GBV workers, especially health workers, on this on the issues of psychology and things like that. Our experts actually do the training for them. We've had 2 of these trainings already within the lifespan of this project. And as an offshoot of that, that's the MHPSS training, we had an engagement whereby we spoke with the government and CSOs on training and retraining more mental health workers so that they can even be able to help out on the issues of gender-based violence. I think so much for that. And then we've also worked with the Sexual Assault Referral Center. You know, the Sexual Assault Referral Center, thankfully, is also a part of the coalition. We've worked with them, and we're also aware that Kano also has the home, sorry, I don't know what they call safe space. They have a safe space for that. Even though we got to know that you cannot stay there, women or people who are facing survivors cannot stay there and go to work from there. They're only there for the period of the suspected abuse. Okay, one of the major activities within this project is the mental health and psychosocial support training that NEEM Foundation does, the MHPSS training. We've had 2 of them here. The training normally spans up to about 5 days, and we have a psychologist handling the training, where we train mental health workers who are working directly with gender-based violence survivors. We've trained them twice, and then as an offshoot of that too, we've also had an engagement with mental health workers, government workers, on training and retraining more health workers, so that we'll have more people handling issues of gender-based violence or issues of mental health as it is. And then we as an organization, I mean, we in an offshoot of the mental health and psychosocial support training is, and the engagement we had, Kano NEEM office had with government organizations, CSOs, and to train and retrain more health workers so that they'll be able to handle survivors of GBV. We've had this training about 3 weeks ago, and it was successful. So those are some of the areas of intervention on this project. 3 organizations, that is, if I'll mention them, AHIP got it, NEGRED got it, and we also have the AFID, that's the African Forum for Youth Development. They all enjoyed grants from NEEM Foundation, that is from this project, the Prevent and Protect project. The grants basically were to be used to create awareness and different ways within communities by the beneficiaries of the grants in respect to GBV. And we went round personally and with the staff of NEEM Foundation. We also attended all of these awareness raising activities that were organized by these 3 organizations, and we saw that for each organization had their own innovation that they brought into it. Like AFID, that's the African Youth, brought in the youth, not just the youth, brought out the youth corpus, beautifully colored, and we had a very, very good time. In fact, I enjoyed that session very much, because there we had people, you know, youth coming out to confess, coming out to speak out about their experiences about on GBV. And there were even drama sketches which sent home the message of GBV. Then for another organization, we had a community roundtable where they came in and they discussed mostly what was happening in their communities, and they were able to prefer solutions on how to go about handling survivors of GBV and also other issues of GBV. Then the other one was a town hall meeting where even a Hakimi was in attendance, and he came in. You know what, sometimes when you see these people, they're all dressed like that, you're surprised what comes out of their minds, speaking impeccable English, telling us the kind of offenses that came out from that area. And we got to know, you know, like always, that drug abuse was the core root of the causes of the issues of GBV, because we also heard from Hisba. Hisba is a big Islamic organization here in Kano, how drug abuse, or how most cases of GBV, that is sexual and gender-based abuse now, emanates from the use of drugs. So it was worthwhile. I'm happy that was given, and the organizations are asking for more, and of course I would not want to hide the fact that Some of them came out clearly, which I like, to say that they wish the grants were more. I know that if the grants were higher than that, they would even do more. They may even be able to help us to cover more ground on what we are doing. This thing, particularly this one, let me mention it, is on the VAP Act itself. That is the act that is to be used in prosecuting perpetrators of the acts of gender-based violence. When we came to Kano, we discovered that this act has not yet been made a law in Kano. But then they had put in a lot of work into it. They had removed provisions of the VAP Act and incorporated it into the penal code law. But the only thing is, that act, we were not sure whether it had been assented to or not by the government of the... On the issue of the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Law, that is the VAP Act. In Kano, this law has not yet been signed into law, but Kano has done a lot of work in this regard. Kano has incorporated the provisions of the VAP Act into their penal code law because they want to have a new law. But while we met with the coalition and other organizations that had to do this, we realized that this law will not see the light of day if we do not take some particular actions. And so we decided to have an engagement. Luckily for us, it was also incorporated into part of the project. We had an engagement with legislators and government workers. Legislators, that is members of the House of Assembly. Luckily for us, they came to the meeting, and we had the House of Assembly, we had the Ministry of Justice, we had the coalition. I mean, all the stakeholders that had to do with the passage of this law, we were able to bring them together under one roof and discuss whether or not to be. Now, we're so far so good. We have reached a stage where we discovered that the law is still with the State Ministry of Justice, and we're still working on that. Hopefully, we are hopeful that before the end of this project, we would have that law in place so that when perpetrators commit these offenses, they'll be able to be brought to justice using the appropriate law. My final word will be that the project Prevent and Protect, which is meant to strengthen organizations or institutions working with survivors of gender-based violence, has been quite successful in Kano. We've touched we've touched all organizations that work on this, and we have a very good relationship. And it is on this relationship we're building. It never ends. This kind of project never ends. It goes on and on. But then we have a platform now. I think we've created a platform on which to move on well. I'd like to thank all the organizations that we have worked with on this project in Kano. They have been so passionate about this, working on gender-based violence. And we discovered that even where they do not get sponsorship or funding from NEEM Foundation, they go ahead to do that which they're doing. And anytime we call them for meetings, honestly, they attend and they make selfless contributions. I do not want to forget the religious organizations too. The Christian Organization of Nigeria, Jamaatul Nasr Islam. Thank you very much. I don't want to mention all the other organizations because if we do that, you may leave out some of them because some of them come quietly into our... I would like to appreciate more specifically CPAC, the Coalition for Policy Advocacy, Kano, where most of the organizations, that's an umbrella organization for most of the organizations that we work with. They have been wonderful. And I would also want to appreciate CAN, that's the Christian Association of Nigeria, and also the Jamaatul Nasr Islam, that's the JNI. They've done a wonderful...
My name is Aisha Bubah. I'm a psychologist, and I work with the Sunshine Series, a social enterprise based in Abuja, Nigeria, which I founded. And we basically work in providing therapy, capacity building on mental health, and also run a toll-free mental health line on the national emergency number 112. Actually, the first mental health line launched in Nigeria on the national emergency number, and it was done with support of the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs. and the Federal Ministry of Communications. It was launched as a COVID-19 response to make access to emergency mental health support and suicide prevention more accessible to residents of Nigeria, starting with the FCT as a pilot. It has been running for the past 1 year now and providing 24/7 free counseling to help seekers. The UN Women calls gender-based violence the shadow pandemic, as we saw a high rise in it during the COVID-19 lockdown. So many people were stuck with their abusers, and then it increased the rate of abuse. So many people got into abusive relationships and abusive situations that put them at risk of gender-based violence, especially sexual violence. And GBV intervention is not a one-man show. It's not a one-sector show. It's something that, to put an end to it, it needs collaborative efforts between the government, non-governmental agencies, CSOs, private sector, schools. Everyone needs to come on board to create awareness on what GBV looks like, what are the signs, what are the available supports out there for victims and survivors, and also the justice system and the law enforcement agencies, ensuring that survivors get justice and also receive treatment and healing that aids their recovery. I think this is a holistic approach that can lead us to see the end of GBV as soon as we want to. A very commendable efforts and project by NEEM Foundation and Ford Foundation. You know, with GBV, we are talking about violence. Wherever there is violence, there is trauma. There is the physical trauma and there is the less visible one, which is the mental trauma, which is often very much neglected because people cannot see it visibly, they cannot see it physically. But trauma manifests in different ways. It affects the mental well-being, it affects the person's ability to recover, to heal, to become meaningful contributors in their society, and to be able to move on and build their resilience. So mental health support is very, very important. And I think any type of GBV intervention that lacks psychosocial support, mental health care is incomplete. You cannot work with someone who has been affected severely by violence and expect that they would not be affected mentally, or they would not be going through some form of trauma that would be hindering their recovery and then seeking help and seeking justice. So this is a very, very important skill. And what we are aiming to achieve is to build the capacity of already existing GBV actors, those who are already working toward providing interventions to victims and survivors, strengthen their capacity so they can be able to offer some basic mental health support. And once they notice that this is very severe, the level of mental trauma and distress is severe, they can make referrals to higher professionals. This would ensure that we are also bridging the care gap, because if we look at the access to mental health care in Nigeria as a whole, it's very, very poor, it's low, it's insufficient, it's inadequate. But with training of GBV actors to be able to provide basic psychosocial support, they can cover some of these gaps. And then once they see that a case is more severe, then they refer to the little higher professionals that we have. This will ensure that so many people will have more easy access to mental health support. And that is what we aim to achieve with this strengthening capacity of already existing actors and ending GBV. They have access to victims, they have access to survivors, they would be ambassadors and advocates for mental health care, and providing this basic support ensures that more survivors can have access to this care.
So what did you take them through in the 3 days, in the course of the 3 days event?
During the 5 days that we are spending with the participants, it's good, it's gladdening to see how much of effort that organizations, government agencies, CSOs, private actors, media personalities are putting into ending GBV. The passion, you can see the drive, you can see the good-heartedness, you can see the investment in trying to ensure that survivors get justice, survivors have access to resources that helps them build back their lives. So it was really good-heartening. It was really nice to see all of this. So it makes it very clear that the capacity building, the target group chosen for this mental health capacity building is not the wrong target group, because these are actual actors, people that have access to survivors, people that have access to victims, people that have access to grassroots communities. And with this capacity building, it makes sure that mental health care reaches the right people. So I'm very happy with the target group, with these participants that have been with us for the past 5 days. Shame and stigma is one barrier that prevents people from seeking help in ending GBV. My advice and message to everyone out there is that if you're a victim or a survivor, it is not your fault. It is on the perpetrator. And we can put an end to this cycle of abuse starting with you. So if you have been through abuse or you're seeing signs of abuse, speak up, seek help. NEEM Foundation has these toll-free numbers that they put on a bag. Put it out there, let people know that there is help out there. There are people out there who are working to support you. There is no shame in this. The shame and the stigma is on the perpetrator and they need to be stopped. GBV doesn't put an end to your life. It doesn't make you invaluable. It doesn't make you any less of a human being. You can go ahead and achieve all the amazing dreams that you have set for yourself. This cannot stop you and it should not stop you. And for families and communities, the silence culture we have in trying to shush survivors, trying to bury everything, it is not helping anybody. It is unfair on survivors, it is unfair on their families. It also allows the perpetrator to keep repeating the same thing to different people. The minute we begin to speak up, we start to support survivors, the more we are likely to reduce the incidences of GBV in our community. So please, let's speak up, let's stand up for survivors, and let's stand up against perpetrators and injustice in our communities.
On this show, my name is Tangodu. I'm based in Abuja and I'm a psychologist at NEEM Foundation. I agree with you actually, and again, most of the time it's based on the context in which we live in. Most of the time in this climate or in this part of the world, people see mental health problem as a religious crisis and not a public health crisis. But thankfully, it's beginning to gain some level of awareness. People are beginning to understand the importance of mental health and why people need to seek for mental health support or trauma care. So one of the ways we have been trying to do that is to create more awareness, do sensitization, helping people who are affected by mental illness to be able to help them receive healing and to receive proper trauma care. And that to some extent have been gaining awareness, and I think it's benefited a lot of people. It boils down to the awareness I talk about. Let more people start creating the sensitization. First, let people all understand what mental illness is. That can be done in school, it can be done within the religious space. It can also be done in community or society. If we have more people who have understanding of what mental health is all about, let's begin to talk about it, let's preach it, let people feel comfortable expressing whatever mental health challenge they are having without being judged. So we must start creating that safe space for people to be able to express themselves and tell you about their mental health issues, and they feel free to express it, and nobody judges them. So we need to create more awareness, we need to sensitize people at every level, even from the home. Parents need to also begin to talk about it. Let's see the way people talk about other form of sicknesses or illnesses. Let's also talk about this, and let people feel comfortable and feel free without having to stigmatize them or discriminate them. Even within the workplace, it should be part of the policy where people are free to be able to talk to a counselor or to a psychologist or a psychiatrist without anybody being judged or discriminated based on their mental health issues. Yeah, I think the issue of gender-based violence is quite rampant. There was a WHO report that said that 1 in every 3 women have experienced gender-based violence. And I think it's quite important for us to pay attention to that particular data or statistics because it has long-term consequences when we don't pay attention to gender-based violence. There is anxiety, depression, all form of psychological distress, post-traumatic stress disorder, what we call PTSD, as a result of somebody experiencing gender-based violence. Gender-based violence has taken different forms within the society. We have physical abuse, sexual assault, emotional or psychological abuse. There's female genital mutilation. You have harmful traditional practices and all sorts of gender-based violence. And we also understand that this gender-based violence we're seeing, because of the impact, the psychological impact that it has resulted to different kind of symptoms. You see some people, they are depressed as a result of that. Some are become unnecessarily aggressive. There are some people that have withdrawn, there is that isolation, they've gone into their shell and they've withdrawn from other people. Some people are already even feeling ashamed, feeling guilty, of it. Some are going through, their self-esteem has been damaged, low lack of self-confidence. All of these things about so much of impact on a lot of women and girls within the society. Of course, I'm not saying gender-based violence only affects women and girls. It's just like more rampant among women and girls within the society. So it's something that is quite rampant, and we need to begin to take serious action, to prevent, and also we need to respond to the gender-based violence issue within the society. When we started this fourth foundation project, what we know as Prevent and Strengthening, before we started the project, there's this project we did in 2019 where we decided to integrate mental health and psychological support into gender-based violence, because that is one of our core areas in NEEM Foundation, apart from other areas like education, peace building, communication, advocacy. Mental health and psychological support is a major area that NEEM Foundation has quite a lot of expertise in. So we decided to integrate mental health and psychological support into it, because also prior to that time, in addressing gender-based violence, it's a multi-sectorial response where you have the legal units, responding to it. You have security, you have medical or healthcare, response to gender-based violence. You have livelihood support and all of that. But also realize that the part of mental health and psychological support, which is also another form of response to gender-based violence, was not taken really seriously. So NEEM Foundation decided to go all out there to ensure that we address it. And how do we address it? Apart from the fact that we provide interventions, that's mental health and psychological support to the survivors, because we know that after going through gender-based violence, one of the impact it has on you is on your mental health. I've seen people who have become depressed, who have experienced severe mental health issues as a result of gender-based violence. So we realize that it's not just enough for you to provide legal response. It's not enough for you to give them livelihood. There's that point of you providing trauma care. So we decided to provide intervention, psychosocial support. But however, we decided to also go a step further to say, okay, in NEEM Foundation, we are doing our best by providing this intervention, but the demand has outweighed our capacity, because the number of people that are experiencing gender violence are quite a lot. What do we need to do for sustainability? We decided to improve the capacity or build the capacity of existing organizations that are working in this area, like community-based organization, civil society organization, government agency, to see how we can do the training. The essence is to duplicate our capacity, to say, okay, at least at the level of you becoming a lay counselor, where you'll be able to provide basic support. So people that are going through this, so we decided to package a mental health and psychological support trainings, build our curriculum, and begin to train organizations. So in this fourth project, is the same thing we're doing, training people that are working in this space in Kaduna, in Kano, and also in Sokoto, because that's the area we are implementing for Fourth Foundation. So we've done in Kaduna and Sokoto. We are currently doing in Kano, and our next place will be in Kaduna. So we want to train a lot of organizations so that also they can begin to provide some level of trauma care and support to survivors of gender-based violence. NEEM Foundation has basically been doing over the years, and like I said, we're also currently doing it in this Fourth Foundation project, and also in other projects that we've been doing. So we have existing relationship with community stakeholders at the grassroots level, you understand, because we also know that they interact more with people at the grassroots level, so we build their capacity on mental health and psychological support so that they can also respond to individuals who are affected by gender-based violence. We also look at community-based organizations within the locality or community in which we are working on. We build we build their capacity, and also ensure that this, scale it down to the other people within the organization. We also work with civil society organization, we work with government agency, because it's not just only at the grassroots level. There's the need for policy influencing policy, there's a need for legislation. How do we improve existing legislation, or how do we create new, policy to be able to prevent gender-based violence, also strengthening the existing system that is in place. So we work with government agency to be able to address that at that level. So both at the grassroots and at the top, NEEM Foundation has existing relationship with different organizations, and over the years we've been, pushing this forward, doing a lot of training, building capacity, also engaging in media roundtable, talking about it, influencing policy, and all of that. So it's something that we've been doing very well in terms of how we build relationship and work with other organizations.
First, I want to say sorry to everyone who have experienced gender-based violence or who is currently experiencing gender-based violence. I want to say sorry. It's not your fault. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that it's your fault. Like I always say, that there's no justification to gender-based violence. There's nothing anyone will say to justify it. Having said that, I want to also encourage you to also know that this is not the end of your life. It's not the end of the world. It's very tough for you at the moment. I know it can be so difficult, especially when it's coming from people that you expect to be able to provide support, people that you think that will provide that safe space for you. I know it's a tough time for you and you are really down at the moment, but I don't want you to remain down. Like I said, it's not the end of the world. There's still hope for you. There is still life after this experience. What do you need to do? First, I want you to try. It might be difficult, but I want you to try to believe in yourself, to tell yourself that you're going to get out of this. But beyond that, you also need to take some steps, because I know there are some people that just want to keep quiet about it and battle this thing alone. It's quite difficult for you to be able to battle this gender-based violence issue, the impact that it's having on you alone. If you have trusted people around you, maybe family or friends that you think that are willing to support you and they are trusted, please try to talk to them. And if you don't have any friends or people around you, you can even contact us at NEEM Foundation or any other organization that you think that are willing to provide support. I think you should be able to reach out. This is not an issue you will just allow to die down or you want to fight alone, because it's having so much impact on your mental health, and it's important for you to be able to try to speak out, and let people get that support. Please don't judge yourself. Don't feel guilty about it. It's not your fault. That's my encouragement to you. But apart from the fact that I'm saying you should not feel guilty and letting you know that it's not your fault, please, you need to speak out. You need to get help. You need to see if what you need is trauma support and care. You need to try and reach out to an organization like NEEM Foundation to provide you with this support. We are always available and willing to provide the support that you need. Also, if the organization close to you, you can reach out to them. But most importantly, please, I want you not to remain and die in these issues that you have experienced and feel that that's the end of the world. You can always come out from it. We have success story of people who have come out from it, and I believe you also will come out from it. Just take that bold step and start believing in yourself. It's not the end of the world, and you can be the best that you are determined to be. Thank you.